Third concept, that's the idea of questioning. How many have questioned what they're doing today and whether it's effective or not? How many question it every day? Show of hands? Yeah, a few more hands. Well, the skill of questioning is a critical component of being innovative, because until we ask the questions, we really don't know if we know all the information we need to know. So questioning, asking the right questions, not just the everyday questions, the right questions, the ones that pull out the right answers or the right information, is a way of being able to turn things around. Let me give you an example. Back again when I was in the advertising business, one of my clients was Labatt's. We did marketing campaigns for them. And one of the challenges we had was you weren't allowed to show promotion with people with a beer in their hand and actually drinking it. Couldn't do it. So how did you promote beer? Well, you showed the label and you showed people. Didn't work very well. That was a liquor board rule. You just couldn't have people with beer in their hand. They had a ski race coming up and they wanted to promote the ski race. So the question I asked is, well, if we can't have people, how can we show fun, activity, and beer? And so the concept I came up with was 2 beer mugs skiing down the hill. Our campaign was called Ski Your Head Off. Do you think that sounded like a fun event? Yeah. Was that an innovative solution to a seemingly difficult problem? And how about this project? For years, there's been discussion in the tire industry. How do we keep the tire inflated? You know, some people have solid tires on their cars. Some people have the little gauge that measures air pressure, etc. Michelin was trying to figure out how do we solve this problem, especially in industrial sites, etc., where there's lots of possibility for the tire getting damaged. So what they realized one day, one of the senior engineers said, what if we don't need air? Interesting question. So they started to experiment with what they call the tweel, which is rubber spines in the tire that would allow the tire to flex without collapsing or breaking. Ask the right question, get the right answer. And how about this? A little trash talking. City in Holland was having a huge problem with garbage being left on streets. People were just leaving litter wherever they walked, and they couldn't figure out how to maintain a clean city because they didn't have enough staff. In discussions with the management team and the project team and so on, one of the people said, well, how about we just fine people for throwing garbage, for throwing litter on the street? Then they realized, well, then we'd have to have people police it. We'd have to have a system for people paying fines. The city could go bankrupt running a system like that. One of the people in the committee said, well, what if we reward them for throwing their garbage in the trash bin? What the idea became was the trash cans, when you threw the litter in the trash can, would actually tell a funny story or a joke. So what do you think happened? People were filling the trash can with all the garbage they could find just simply because they could get the trash can to tell them a funny joke. Trash talking. Fourth skill, networking. The ability to be able to work with other companies, other people, other concepts, pull them together. Network. Works in the computer industry, right? Sharing networks, etc. How many are familiar with Gold Corp? Well, Gold Corp started out as a very small company, Vancouver-based. They had a problem. They had the Red Deer mine in Ontario was not producing enough gold to really make it viable, and it was very expensive to dig it out of the ground. So what they had to do was figure out where the actual veins of gold were in the mining process, and their geology team wasn't able to determine because for some reason there wasn't the right structure to be able to determine where the veins of gold were, and when they did find it, it was expensive. The president, Rob McEwen, decided that he needed to get some other way of getting data and input. So what he did, he wound up at an MIT conference and he learned about Linux, the Linux operating system, which is open source and shares data from whatever source they can get the data from all around the world. He said, well, gee, how could I use this concept in finding the data we need to find? And what he did was he took the data from 1948 on, when that mine had existed, and he shared it with people around the world. Now, for those of you in resource industries, you'll know that that's a big no-no. You're not supposed to share data outside of your corporation, right? Because it's proprietary data. Other people could figure out where the gold was, so on. But he shared the data, and what happened was there was over 1,000 submissions around the world. Some people, not even prospectors or miners or geologists, just ordinary people, submitted some ideas on how they could find the gold. He offered a prize, and it was called the Gold Corp Challenge. The prize was over $500,000 for finding the right location for the gold. So they did find gold. What was interesting was the winning team was a combination of a company called Fractal Graphics. They created a 3D model of the mine based on all the data they collected from 1948. And then the other company helped them figure out how to best go after that gold. And so they shared the data worldwide. As a result, they were able to pull $6 billion worth of profit out of that particular mine, a mine that was almost at the point of being shut down, by simply networking their idea, sharing it with other people around the world to find the source. Here's what's interesting is Rob McEwen is not a miner. He's not a geologist. He came from the investment industry. He knew nothing about the industry. We were talking earlier, Wayne and I were talking earlier about the fact that sometimes people who know nothing about the industry are the most intelligent people simply because they ask the right questions, simply because they start investigating to learn what's going on. So what we call novice consulting, people who have no knowledge or background in that area but can ask the right questions and investigate and determine the right results. And that's what he did. How about these two guys? Mortal enemies in the competitive world, Ford and Toyota, going head to head for years, competing to gain market share. And they realized they were spending millions of dollars trying to develop a hybrid powertrain for vehicles, SUVs and small trucks. So what they decided to do was they decided to get together and become frenemies, friendly enemies, share their technology, ramp up the knowledge sharing, and be able to develop a powertrain less time, less cost, which serves both markets. Do you have frenemies in the business that you can share your ideas with? And how about cross-training? Years ago, Olympic athletes learned that by cross-training they perform better in their particular chosen sport. Do we cross-train ourselves? Do you cross-train yourself? Can you develop your skills, left and right brain, be able to generate ideas faster? There's lots of different tools and techniques for doing it. We've shared those with some of our clients. And one of the simplest ones in the world is what's called a mind map, where you use the natural connection of left and right hemisphere to not only put information down, but be able to use pictures and graphics, etc., which is the right brain function, to be able to generate ideas quicker and recall ideas just simply by one-word connections, and then be able to reconnect the ideas after you've finished the process of generating. So that's just one simple technique. Are there other things you can do? How many here, by show of hands, do things like Sudoku? Few? Board games? Draw? Paint? Sculpt? Few people? Yeah. Lots of those different skills can help improve your ability to cross-train your brain. Sixth skill, experimenting. Probably one of the leading companies in the world in the way of changing how they do business is Virgin. This is Richard Branson. With Virgin Airlines, he realized that the world was going towards bioconservation, and being able to save air pollution, etc. So he started experimenting with adding bio waste to jet engine fuel, and also combined with oils from coconut, etc. And so now Virgin Airlines fuel is partially jet fuel and partially biofuel. More efficient, less pollution, and less costly. Do you experiment?